everyone, it's Mary. Today I'm bringing you my January wrap-up, and I'm very happy to report that January has been such a great reading month for me, so a really good start to the year. It's actually the first time that I had to stop my reading, which, I mean, I didn't really have to, but I was getting a little bit worried about all the books that I needed to be talking about in my wrap-up, although of course I could have, split the wrap-up in two parts, but I don't know. I was just thinking, no, that's too many books, because I managed to finish 8 things. So I think, especially looking back at my reading these past reading years, I think it's such a huge accomplishment for me, and I'm just very happy. So without further ado, let's just dive into the books. The first one, I feel like it's kind of a cheat because it's it's still a book. It's an illustrated book, and it's it's very short, and it's sort of poetry collection slash short stories about mothers. I don't know, I think the original one is in French. I have this one in Italian, it was a gift, and it's called Maman. So I don't know if it exists. I'm just gonna leave a link down below, and it's marketed as for children, but I don't think it's for children because it does talk about mom and her child, but I think it's more for mothers, and it has gorgeous illustrations of mothers all over the world, and it just, as I said, each page has a short story or sort of a poem on motherhood or just mothers in general, and it's just, I thought it was very beautiful, very such a nice gift. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. And next up, I don't know which order I'm gonna be talking about the books, and I also hope that I don't sound too bad because I'm harboring a cold. I really hate winter. Even though we did have quite a mild one because it's not been that cold, but my son being in kindergarten and everything, he just brings home all the bugs, and yeah, so we're constantly ill basically, so I cannot wait for spring to come. But anyway, let's get on with the books. So the next one, it's actually a book that I have been sent for review, and it is A Bolshevik Christmas by Joel Bereket, and I'm so sorry because I did not enjoy this book, and I hated not enjoying this book because the author was so kind as to gifting the book to me, and it came before Christmas with a Christmas card and everything, and I just feel so bad that I did not enjoy this one, but unfortunately that's just how it is. I just didn't think the characters were very well fleshed out. They didn't really have depth, and I just didn't enjoy the story that much. It sort of felt like a spin-off of The Nightmare Before Christmas, but with Russians. And yeah, I don't love doing, negative reviews. So I just don't think this book was for me, and I obviously would not recommend it. But yeah, so a disappointment. I'm sorry. I'm not sure that I want to receive more books for review because I just feel so bad. I don't like it. But yeah, moving on. I read a book about parenting, and again, I'm gonna be super quick about this one because it has not been translated. It is an Italian book by an Italian author, all about babies and toddlers sleep and how they sleep and how normal it is for them to wake up several times a night, which was such a pat on the back for me because that's something that I've been experiencing, and just needed someone with more experience and more knowledge than I have to say that it's completely normal. And yeah, so this was very useful again, but it was not translated, so not really talking about it. Next up, since we're doing the Italian sort of books, I am gonna talk about, not really gonna talk again about this one, which is a biography, I would say, more of a memoir maybe. This is a memoir of Alda Merini, who was an Italian poet. So this was my pick for a curious, no, it's not a curious, it's Curious Adventure, which I'm gonna leave a link down below to the announcement video. It's a challenge hosted by Natalie over at Curious Reader. And it's basically a non-fiction challenge that goes all the year long. And I still need to film a TBR for that one, but for January, the assignment was to choose a book about a local speciality or a local celebrity. She's not really a celebrity, she was a poet. And my level of local is just Italian, not of my, my area in particular, because I don't know anybody who was famous or who is famous, and I didn't want to dig, too far into the past. So she is fairly recent because she died in 2009. And this is a memoir about her and her experience being in and out of a mental hospital for 10 years, while she also went through 3 pregnancies and I think 2 weddings. I'm not entirely sure. And I didn't particularly enjoy this one a lot. I'm not really a poetry fan, and I don't particularly enjoy her poems, although she's very well loved. I read some of her poems, and I just hope that her life or this experience of her would be interesting to me, regardless of her poetry career. But yeah, it was just, the writing style is a bit sparse, which I think it's intentional. It's sort of repetitive and yeah, non-linear, which again I'm fine with. But yeah, I didn't feel particularly connected to her, and although I'm glad that I read it because it was an interesting experience, it was a 3-star read for me, so nothing, groundbreaking. And this one, again, was not translated. A book that I don't own is a book that I reread. I decided to go and reread all the books that I own that I read and enjoyed as preteen, basically. I think I own some that I read as a teenager, but most of them I do know that I want to keep, while the books that I read like in middle grade, I don't remember them, and I don't know if I want to keep them, to be honest. So this one, I read another book by the same author in December, which I'm pretty sure that I talked about in my December wrap-up. Feels like so long ago since I filmed it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that I talked about that. And this one is called Unclaimed Treasures by Patricia MacLachlan. MacLachlan, yes. And the fact that because I own these 2 books in Italian, and they are both combined in a single volume, which I don't know why they chose to do that, but it does feel like the same sort of story, with just the characters have different names, and I don't particularly got on with this one as well. It was a nice read, one that I would not recommend to children, and I don't think that it's because I'm an adult now. I just think it's poorly written, especially when it comes to characterization, just because, as I said, it just seems like the same book that I read with different, names. And yeah, it's just about a girl that basically falls in love with an older man, and I'm trying not to spoil anything in case anyone wants to read this one. But yeah, it's just sort of a coming of age story, I would say. Very simple, very predictable, I would say. What I can say is that is very readable, but yeah, not particularly a fan of this one. Then I read Please Look After Mom by Kyung-sook Shin, and this was my first Korean novel. I've never read any, I've never actually had any experience with Korean culture previously, so it was very interesting for that aspect. And I've been reading this book with my, it's not my, it's a book club that I'm in. I think we're called the Roaring 20s. Yeah, and we really enjoyed the experience. I did think this book was good. It was not spectacular. I was expecting a little bit more from it. It was a 3-star read, which I honestly, usually I get rid of books that I rate 3 stars just because I think they're good, they're average, but I'm just gonna forget about them. But this one, I don't feel like parting with this one just yet. So I'm keeping it for now, and it's more of a 3.5, I would say, stars. It's a book about the disappearance of a mother in this Korean family, and how the different members of the family deal with her disappearance, given the fact that she is ill, and until that time of her disappearance, the family didn't really pay that much attention to her as a person, but she was encapsulated into the role of a mother, which is something that I think in each culture you can find, a similar sort of behavior when it comes to mothers in general. You tend to think of them as just as their role, forgetting that they are people and they do have a life, outside of being a mother. So it was interesting for that aspect, and I do think that it really gives you an insight of the Korean culture, which I really appreciated and enjoyed, because again, I had no experience before this one, but I didn't feel like I was lacking some sort of information to appreciate and enjoy the story. The writing style is very plain and simple, but without being too overly simplified. It was just enjoyable and a very quick read. It's told from different perspectives. You have different point of views, and you never have the same event talked about by different people. And it's also, I don't know if this should be a warning or something, but it is, the second person narrative is used a lot, which I know can turn off a lot of people. I personally was a bit taken aback at first, but then I didn't mind that much. I just think it worked in the intention of the novel. So yeah, I think definitely check this one out if it feels like something that should interest you. I did have a great reading experience, that's for sure. And then on to the audiobooks. So this year I switched, well, it's not that I switched to audio, but I did give audiobooks another possibility, because the first time that I tried an audiobook, it was back in 2015. I had just started this channel, and I was just trying to get everywhere, and I was, I tried one audiobook, and I didn't enjoy the experience. I didn't enjoy the book either, but that's just because it was not the right book for me. I didn't like the narrator, I didn't like the story, and I didn't really get the audio thing. I was like, why am I supposed to be listening while I can read it instead? Because it's something that I really much prefer. I also get very distracted when somebody else is reading for me. I just thought, okay, it's not for me. But this year, when I thought about the fact that I don't have a lot of time to be reading, because I do need to do a lot of things, and especially with a toddler, it's just, time is never enough. And I tried this app which is called Script, which I adore, and there are so many great titles in there, and it's a fairly cheap subscription, and you have a lot of books that you can maybe even only try out and see if you like them and if you want to get them on print. And that's what I did. I saved a lot of titles, and then I said, well, when I'm not able to read, I can still be reading while I'm in the car commuting, or just washing dishes or doing laundry, and that's just what I did. And I had such a great experience with that. I'm so happy that I actually gave audiobooks a second chance. I still think that I do prefer to read them, myself. But nonetheless, the experience was so great, especially with the first one, which I actually got the paperback of, because I loved it so much and I really want to reread it, maybe experiencing it differently this time. And it is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. And this one is a memoir, and I think with memoirs and just real life stories, audiobooks are very effective, especially when it's the author herself that is actually reading the book. It's just, it gives you an extra sort of intimacy with the story. And she has such a great voice, other than, such a beautiful writing style. And I did really enjoy listening to this one. Although enjoy probably is not the best word for this. Chanel was raped at a party in a university campus. And it was actually, her case was very well known back in 2015 or 16 when that happened. She was raped by Brock Turner, and she used a pseudonym. She was known as Emily Doe, but she actually decided to reveal her identity last year when the book came out. And she wrote her memoir about this case and about her experience before this event and afterwards, and all she had to deal with, how her family reacted, her boyfriend, the court procedures that she had to go through. I just think this book is so important, and I do think that everybody should read this one. I think it is so relatable. Like, her experience is so relatable, even though you possibly did not go through what she went through, or even something similar. But anyway, she just is so good at making you feel empathy for her and just get into her shoes. And again, her prose is beautiful, and she just feels like an amazing person. Like, while I was reading this book, I was thinking, I really want to get to know her, because she sounds amazing, because she managed to find the strength in vulnerability, and is not afraid of speaking up for herself and for the other victims that possibly go through a similar process. And she really doesn't shy away from details. She shares her complete experience, both her physical experience, but also her mental experience, and how the aftermath was affecting her and is still affecting her, even though she has no recollection of the event, because when she was sexually assaulted, she was experiencing a blackout. She really puts her heart in your hands, and as I said, she's not afraid to go into detail about everything, without it being something that you read just because you're curious in a voyeuristic sort of way. It's just honest and clean cut, and I just couldn't recommend this book enough. And the audiobook, again, was it's a great listening experience. The only reason why I did not give this book 5 stars, because I gave it 4 stars, although it's more 4.5. I hate star ratings. It's just because the last part of the book, I think, was a bit unnecessary, because she talks about the Me Too movement, which is, again, important, but it just got lost a little bit. I didn't feel as pulled in as the previous parts of the book. So I don't know if it was just my my fault, but I did feel like this kind of last chapter or so was just a bit less enjoyable. She also reads her victim impact statement, and you can feel the emotion in her voice, and it's just so beautiful and enraging at the same time. Her victim impact statement went viral when it was first published, on BuzzFeed again in 2000 and I want to say 15, but it was maybe 16. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't think. Yeah, I'm sorry. Anyway, read this one because it was amazing. The last book that I read was another audiobook, and I needed something very short because I was waiting to listen to an audiobook for February, which is the next pick in our book club, and that is a fairly long one, and I just wanted to keep my audio thing going, and after Know My Name I was like, I need something short and sweet. So I browsed through the titles that I had saved, and I listened to How We Fight for Our Lives by Saeed Jones. And again, this was another memoir written and, well, narrated by the author himself, and it is the experience of Saeed growing up in the US as a gay black man, boy and then man. And again, this one was brilliant. He has such an amazing writing style, again pulls you into the story and makes you stay, and yeah, it's roughly, I would say it's divided into 3 parts. It was very short, which again, this one, I gave this one 4 stars as well, although I would say I did prefer my experience with Know My Name, but this one was very powerful. And my only complaint was that it was too short, possibly, and I would say that he probably overshares some of his, especially sexual experiences, in the middle section, which is the section about university. I was saying it has like 3 sections, I would say roughly. The first one is his childhood, then we have his university sort of years, and then his adulthood, and the last part mostly talks about his mom, although the relationship with his mom is explored throughout the entire memoir. I would say the last part is the real focus on her and him, their bond and her illness and how that affected him. And it was so beautiful, that part. I think it was the best one. I really enjoyed the first one as well. And I would say the university years are sort of a, as I said, he really shares his sexual experiences, which I'm not a prude, but I'd say they were, I would have loved to have more detail on, different sort of experiences other than his sexual ones. So yeah, that's why I knocked a star off. But other than that, it was, again, a great listening experience, and I'm definitely very happy to, to have this audio thing going, and excited for my next audiobooks. So yeah, I think I covered all the books that I finished in the month of January. We all know that January is the longest month of the year, and it just goes on forever, and I'm so glad it's over. And yeah, let me know if you read any of the books that I mentioned and what you thought about them, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!